truth is that the spiritual path is the most exciting, fun, challenging, extreme sport there is. Once you understand what's going on, there's no more extreme sport. You could try to scale the highest mountain, ride the biggest wave, dive to the deepest ocean. It could never be as exciting as spiritual growth, as the spiritual journey. To understand true, exciting spiritual growth, you start from where you are. All journeys have to start from exactly where you are, otherwise you're not going to go anywhere. It's your starting spot. When you go into MapQuest or something on the web, and you say, I want to get to such and such a place, where you want to go is one thing, but they ask you where you are. If you tell them the wrong place about where you are, but you tell them where you want to go, you're not getting there. So it takes both. It has to clearly articulate New York, this, that, wherever you're going, and you best put in your starting place. That's the part that most people miss. True spiritual growth, which is the cornerstone of self-realization, of enlightenment, of God realization, says, very simple, are you God realized? Do you see and feel the infinite at all times in you and around you? No. Okay, well, since that's where you're going and you don't know about it, let's not describe what the end looks like. How could you know? You're just taking where you are now and dreaming up concepts and views and opinions and preferences and beliefs and hopes and dreams and saying that's where I'm going. But notice it's from where you are now. No matter how you paint it, it's from your concept. You have all these different things going on which are from your frame of reference. And so you're ending up, whether you like it or not, starting from where you're at, because that is your frame of reference. And all of your views, all your opinions, all your preferences, all your beliefs, all your hopes or dreams have already been formed by what got put inside of your mind as you were growing up, who taught you, what your parents were like. Every single one of those psychological conditionings have conditioned your view of God. Well, it must be irrelevant then. Because if you grew up next door, you have a different view of God. That somehow is not real enough for me, right? If you grew up down the block, or if you were rich, you got one view. If you were poor, you got another. And if you grew up over here, you got another. That's not going to do it. You're talking about something that is beyond these little differences that humanity creates of where you happen to be at any given point in time. But your preferences and your views and your beliefs and your hopes and your dreams, these all come from your mind. They're all programmed into you based on the experience that you had in the past. If you think it's not true, you best examine that. Any belief you have, no matter how strongly you believe it, imagine that the things that had happened to you in your life didn't happen. Imagine you grew up somewhere else. Imagine you had different parents. Imagine you went to a different school. Imagine you majored in something different college. Imagine your first boyfriend or girlfriend were totally different, of a different religion, and treated you differently. Would you still have the same beliefs, the same hopes, the same dreams, the same visions that you have now? And the answer is absolutely not. This stuff comes from your mind. In fact, they change over time, don't they? People change their belief structures. People change their hopes. They change their dreams. Based on what? Based on the experiences that they have. So if you have some very, very strong, either traumatic or beautiful experience, you may change. I wanted to be rich and famous and do all that kind of stuff, and I've decided to become a nurse and help people. How'd that happen? Well, I was in a car accident, and I saw this person in need, and I went over, and I was able to help them. And it felt so good and so right. It was the first real thing that ever happened to me, so I've changed my major. Some people change their major every quarter based on the different experiences they have. That's showing you what I'm talking about. There's nothing holy about what your hopes are, what your dreams are, what your concepts are, what your views are. They will change based upon your experiences. You get input into the mind. It gets programmed. Based upon all these different inputs, that's what you'll hear it say. It'll say, I like this, I don't like that, I believe in it, I don't believe in that. I believe that all the religions are the same. I don't. I think Christianity is the only way. Where did you get that? I was born with it. No, you weren't. If you had grown up in a Christian church where the guy was very, very liberal and open, right, and sat there and said to you, you know, this is our way, but other people have their way, then you'd be the person that's sitting there saying, you know, that. If you grew up in the other hellfire damnation, there's only one way and that's all there is to it, then you're saying that. Don't think they're your views. They're not your views, are they? Those views were imposed upon you. They were programmed and impressed in your mind. And if you had different ones put in there, you would have different hopes and dreams and beliefs. So the thought of using your thoughts as you exist now to decide what it means to be God realized, to decide where you're going, what your destination is in the spiritual path, is wrong. So it's literally, I told you, it's the opposite. True spiritual path starts with saying, who am I now? Where am I now? I better know the starting place. I better understand myself fully, why I am the way I am, how I am, so I can understand how to grow from where I am. But as far as where I'm going to or into, at any given point in time, it is where I am now that is going to project where I'm going, and that's not deep enough. That's not good enough. You can't do that. It would like sitting around now thinking about what the person should look like who you're going to fall in love with. Don't do it. If you do it, you may very well miss the person you're going to fall in love with, because you don't have the slightest idea what that's going to be like. You meet somebody, your heart opens, okay, that's who you fell in love with. It doesn't do any good at all to think about it ahead of time. It actually does bad, because you sit there and say, well, he's going to be tall, or she's going to be like this, then somebody's not, you miss them. And you don't always fall in love with who you think you're going to, do you? Right? When the heart goes pop, you fall in love. And so you learn deep spirituality. You will learn you don't think about those things. It's not really about setting a concept out there and then trying to grow into it. It is about something much deeper. It is about starting from where you are. Now, people have trouble with that because people have trouble with where they are. Most people don't want to look at where they are. Most people, believe it or not, don't really like themselves. How does that happen? Why would you ever not like yourself? I doubt there are any dogs or cats that don't like themselves. I mean, we've got to be the only species that learns how to not like themselves. How do you not like yourself? You set up concepts, views, and opinions, and preferences, and beliefs, same as we've been talking about, and you not only use those to think about God, but you use those to judge yourself. You hold a concept up in front of yourself as to this is how it's supposed to be. And then you look and you say, I'm not that way. I'm not supposed to feel fear. I don't want to feel jealousy. I thought I would be done with jealousy. I don't like that. I don't want to not like this person. I don't want to feel attracted to that person. You come up with a million different things where you have these views and opinions and preferences about things, and then you impose those on yourself. Know anything about that? And you end up feeling guilt. And you end up judging yourself. You're not liking yourself. So if the spiritual path starts with get to know yourself, come to understand yourself, we're in big trouble to start with. Most people would much rather think about a God who they made up and then feel like they're trying to grow into that than to actually look at and begin by accepting where they're at, by accepting where they're starting from. But like I said, if you go to MapQuest and you happen to live in a certain part of town that you don't like and you're embarrassed about it and you want to drive to New York, don't put Nob Hill as a starting place, because your map won't work. You have to start from where you are. So it's getting exciting enough already. Already I told you it's better than climbing Mount Everest, better than diving into the deepest part of the ocean no one's ever been, because that's where you're going. Because even you've never been inside yourself. Most people will not look at themselves. They can't. It's really beautiful. Let's spend a moment. You can't look at yourself. Why? Because you have a way you want to be. It would be as though, and people do it, even your physical self, people have trouble looking at. They don't want to look the way they look. They don't want to look heavy. They don't want to look old. They don't want to have green eyes. They want to have blue eyes. They don't want their hair to be a little bit frizzy. They don't want this. They don't want to have a pimple. They got 8 million things that aren't supposed to be when they look in the mirror. Anybody know anything about that? Now you can't look in the mirror. What happens when you look in the mirror? You get embarrassed. You think it's difficult. Kind of neat. All right? So it's the same situation with looking at your psychological self, with looking at your personal self, looking at your inner self. People would rather not do it. They'd rather stay distracted outside, busy, doing things, than to have to confront what is going on inside themselves. There's just one problem with the spiritual journey. And we'll use Christ's word, we could have used anybody's, because in the end the teachings are all the same, is that the kingdom is within you. That's a true statement. You will not find any spiritual growth outside yourself. There is none. The truth is, spirituality is an inner experience. It's something real. It's something that happens inside of you. All right? It's realer than any experience you ever had. It's realer than when you fell in love with the person that is the love of your life. What happened to you is what happens to you when you come into with Spirit. It's more overwhelming than that. It's more life-changing than that. It is a real experience. It is not a belief. No more than I think I love her. You know you love her. You can see it all the time. It changes you constantly inwardly. That is what your spiritual experience is like and will be like and should be like. But it's inside of you. So if you can't deal with or don't want to deal with your starting place, which is what's inside of you now, your fears, your jealousies, your attractions, your repulsions, your insecurities, your everything, all the different, whatever it is, whatever's in there. It's not your fault. No one ever told you that. It's not your fault. It's just how the psyche got made because of all the different experiences that you've had. This person was nice to you. That person dumped on you. This mother did this. The father did that. Just go study psychology. It's Psych 101, for God's sakes. Because ever since you were born, all these different things happened. And they all made impressions upon your psyche. And now what's happening is your psyche is speaking back. And it just keeps talking about all kinds of stuff, doesn't it? What you should do, where you should go, what's right, what's wrong, what's this, what's that. That's just all the impressions that got left upon your psyche, and your emotions are now coming out, spewing out all the time, reacting and overreacting and doing all sorts of stuff. Talking, the mind just keeps going. That's the psyche. It is the result of all the learned experiences that have happened to you. Skinner once said that. He said, man is the sum of his learned experiences. It's not true. It is not true. What a human being is the consciousness, the awareness, the consciousness, living inside the psyche and the physical body. The psyche is the sum of the learned experiences. Do you know how I know you're not the sum of your learned experiences? Because you can sit there and watch the sum of your learned experiences talk to you, can't you? Don't do that. You shouldn't do it. You know you shouldn't do that. That's your learned experience. Somebody else is saying, do it, man, do it. You only get one shot. That's that learned experience about the same thing. It depends on what you've been taught. It depends on what you've learned. The net result is some entity, some essence, some consciousness is sitting inside listening to those two things. When your mind talks to you, you do hear it, don't you? Make it say hello right now, inside, loud, over and over. Anybody hear it? Of course you hear it. Who hears it? You do. And if you're sitting inside and it's saying, you should do that, whatever you do, do that, and it's saying, don't do that, it's the same part of you listening to both. So a true human being, the true definition of human being is the soul, the essence, the self, the consciousness, the being, you, inside, way inside, listening to the mind and feeling the emotions. Do you feel your emotions? When you feel fear, how do you know you feel fear? You say it. I can't. Why? I feel fear. Who feels fear? Fear doesn't feel fear. What do you see? I see a tissue. The tissue doesn't see the tissue. I see the tissue. Who sees fear? Who feels jealousy? Who feels love? The same one who heard you say hello. That is the indwelling essence. That, believe it or not, is the soul. It's that close to your soul. It's not something you believe in. Your soul is not something you think you have. And you can't lose it either. I think I lost my soul. I'll go look for it. No. If you're in there and you're aware that you're in here and you're looking out and your mind's saying, I think I lost my soul. Oh my God, how will I get it back? Just ask, who hears it say that? Do you hear the mind saying that? Who hears that? That's your soul. That's the essence. That's the consciousness. That indwelling being, the self, your true essence, watches the mind, which is the sum of the learned experiences, and experiences this amazing orchestra of vibrations that pours out of the heart. You got one of those? Right? It plays bass notes and it plays high notes, doesn't it? It can get low and melodramatic, and it can get happy and light. And you just get all these vibration rates that come out of the heart. It's like a heart is like an instrument, an amazing musical instrument. The question is, who is experiencing this? And the answer is you are. So the mind is the sum of the learned experiences, and the heart is this amazing vibration machine that plays the background music to what's going on. So you see somebody you're afraid of, it goes boom, 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 boom. You see someone you love, it goes Rites of Spring. It plays all your musical symphonies. The question is not what is it playing. The question is, how do you know? People pay so much attention to what they're feeling. This is where your essence of spirituality starts. You pay so much attention. I feel jealous, I feel fear, I feel love, I feel hatred, whatever it is. You should pay more attention to who feels it rather than what you feel. And that is your entire spiritual journey. The indwelling being, the consciousness who watches the mind, who feels the heart, is spirit. And the closer you pull back to that essence, the more you will feel the higher vibrations awaken inside of you. The more you pay attention to what it is you're seeing and get involved in the emotions and get involved in the thoughts and the mind, the further you pull away from spirit, even if what the mind is talking about is spiritual. It doesn't matter, all right? No matter what that mind is talking about, if you are leaving your seat of consciousness to get involved in the mind, you are moving away from God, not toward God. It's very deep. So the net result is your journey begins at home, way at home. You need to be able to look at your mind and look at your emotions, your heart, objectively, from a seat of objective observation. You should not get ashamed of yourself because you feel fear, jealousy, attraction, repulsion. It's not something to get ashamed of. You don't get ashamed when the wind blows. You don't get ashamed when the weather changes. Why? Because you have no control over it. I hope you didn't feel guilty when the winds came up, right, for the hurricane, because it really wasn't your fault. I hope you didn't walk around, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I did that. You didn't do anything, all right? Then why do you own this stuff you're feeling inside so much? I wish I could free you from that. I hope I am. It's not yours to own. It is a result of your learned experiences. It is a result of the programming of all of these different experiences that happen to you. And that's why you feel what you feel. And that's why you think what you think. And if you think bad thoughts about something, then be aware. Just watch them. Oh, here are bad thoughts. They're not mine. They're like the weather. They're like wind. They come and go. Here are good thoughts. They're not mine. I'm just sitting here watching. How about you? Right? You're just sitting here watching these thoughts come and go. They're just driving by like cars. You're just sitting here watching the emotions come and go. That is the seat you have to take for spiritual growth. Why? Because if you don't, you will not be able to handle the vibrations that are going on inside of you. You won't like meditating. You won't like contemplation. You will not like going inside. You would rather stay outside and stay busy and do this and always do this and always do that and always distract yourself. Ever meet somebody who can't stay still for a second? Always has to be talking, always has to be acting, always has to be doing something. And if for 2 seconds it gets quiet, they're talking. Why? Because they can't settle back inside themselves. The moment the consciousness, the awareness, starts to settle inside to what's going on in here, it's too freaky. And therefore they'd rather stay outside and keep active and distracted. Just keep me out here shallow because I can't go inside. It's too much of a mess. You understand that? Spirituality is inside. Until you can pass through your personal self. What does that mean? All this noise that got made by your learned experiences. You do have some learned experiences, don't you? Have you had some impressions made on you along the way? There was that old, it was Harrison Ford in one of those movies said, it's not the years, it's the mileage. Okay? It's like, you had some experiences, guys, some hurts, some joys, left some impressions on there. Do you notice nowadays when you see certain cars or certain people or hairdos certain ways, it makes you think certain things, right? Makes you come back up, make you feel certain stuff. You got some marks in there? The answer is yes, say yes. How many? Billions. Lots of impressions. Those marks that got left by your experiences in life, programmed inside your psyche, are what are causing all of these disturbances and all of these actions and reactions of your mind and of your emotions inside. They're still there, and they're causing reactiveness in the lake of your inner being. The most natural tendency is to run. You don't want to deal with it. You don't want to feel it. So if you see something that's making you feel it, you run away. If you're feeling you don't want to, you do drugs, you get drunk, you go out and have an affair, you go shopping, you do something. Just get me out of here. Ever done it? Ever feel I don't want to deal with this? And so you get driven outside. That's where most people are. Is busy outside, trying to do things or get things or change things that will make it a little bit better for themselves. The spiritual journey is quite the opposite of that. The spiritual journey is when you sit there and say, see this mess in here? I got to get to the other side. I got to get to the other side of this mess. Not the shallow side, the deep side. And you can get to the other side. You can work through all that stuff that's inside of you. Period. And if you literally want to experience the ecstasy of what your being is, of spirit, of your own essence, you have to get to the other side. It is not a matter of arranging and rearranging people, places, and things outside so that you feel a little bit better inside. If you haven't noticed, it doesn't work too good, does it? You get very busy, and in fact, you get very neurotic. You start thinking, I have all this work to do. It's rather overwhelming, all right? And then somehow people never behave, do they? You put them where they're supposed to go, and you go to do something else, and they move. How dare they? All right? And so you end up having to manipulate and control everything in your life. It gets heavy, doesn't it? Anytime you feel it overwhelming, anytime you feel it scary, anytime you feel it heavy, take a look. Why? Why would it be heavy? The world is just going about its business like it always has. It's just another day. How many days have there been? The sun comes up, the ball spins on the axis. That's all that happened today. Took a little rotation around the axis. But it seemed like all this stuff happened. That is because you're not okay inside, and you're trying to control the world to be a certain way so that you feel better. That's very busy. It's overwhelming. Spirituality is the path of your inner growth, not your outer. And it's the path that says, if I'm not okay inside, it's because all these impressions from the past have created a mess in here. I better straighten that out. I better work my way through myself so that I can get to the other side of this noise where there's peace. And there is. Where there's joy, love, just your natural essence of your own being. The highest you have ever experienced in your greatest love relationship, in your greatest feeling of the beauty of nature, is really just a moment in which your personal self quieted down and you were able to experience the joy of your own self. When you feel joy, where do you feel it? Outside? Inside. People that are in love, when they sit down with each other, sometimes they close their eyes. Well, what are you doing that for? You're not going to feel love. Yeah, you do. It starts flowing inside. You just close your eyes because the love is so overwhelming inside that when you truly feel love, you can't open your eyes, can you? It draws you back into this flow of energy inside yourself. That's right, inside yourself. The joy that you feel in deep love, the love that you feel in love, the peace that you feel in moments of harmony is in truth an experience of your own self. It is an experience of what your natural state feels like when you don't have all this noise. It is the peace that passeth all understanding. Why is it past understanding? Because even when things are wrong, even when you're disturbed, that peace does not budge. Because you are the one who's watching the disturbance. It doesn't matter how disturbed it gets. If you're watching the disturbance, the question becomes, who are you? Who am I that's watching that disturbance? And what you will realize is you who's watching is the eternal being. It's always there. It's the eye that never sleeps. Even when you're asleep, you watch your dreams, don't you? Who watches your dreams? When you wake up, you say, oh, I had such a dream last night. That sounds like the guy who said, you should have seen who I saw today. It's the same consciousness that watched the dream as the consciousness is looking out through the eyes. It's the same you. There's only one being inside. And eventually you catch on that you are you. You are the eternal self. You are the infinite consciousness that never sleeps. It's always there. But what you're watching is the impressions on the mind and the results of that on your emotions. You must work your way through that. Period. As you do, really beautiful stuff starts to happen inside of you. As you draw your energy back into the self, you start to feel waves of joy, waves of love. You start to feel love for everybody, for everything. Even people that don't like you, you feel love. It's terrible. You can't not love things. If a dog runs up and barks at you, you feel sorry that you disturbed him. You can't help but have compassion and love on every single thing you see. Because inside the essence of your being, you have such a deep harmony and understanding of all of life. Your personal self still makes noise, but you're not identified with it. You're identified with the one who sees your personal self. Let's say you get really, really upset. How do you know you're really, really upset? There's somebody watching that. You should have seen her. She went crazy in there. That dog went up and started barking. It was fun to watch. She freaked completely. Can you watch her freak? Ever been in there and watch her freak? Ever watch her start to freak? Then ever lose it and come back later? Say, oh, what happened? So that's your consciousness dealing with your personal self. So yoga, in the beginning and the end, is the entire process, the entire journey of deciding I am the conscious indwelling being. When I was 5, I looked in a mirror and saw a 5-year-old. When I was 10, I looked in the mirror and saw a 10-year-old. How about you? When I was 20, I looked in the mirror and saw a 20-year-old. When I'm 70, I'll look in the mirror and see a 70-year-old. There's only one consciousness inside. It has no age. It is looking at something that has an age. It's just looking at the body of a man, looking at the body of a woman, looking at a 5-year-old, looking at a 30-year-old. Contemplate it. And you will see that you who dwells inside are not who you think you are. You are the eternal one. Christ said, my Father and I are one. All right? That's not hard. It is not hard. You pull back behind the mind, behind the emotions, definitely behind the body. How? What does that mean? Look in the mirror and see who's looking rather than what you're looking at. Pay attention. What is the consciousness that sees the object of consciousness? Once you can do that with your body, do it with your mind. Who hears the mind talk? Who's watching this mind talk? Then do it with your heart. When you can do it with your heart, you've gotten somewhere. There's all this stuff. Excuse this stuff. Can you watch? Are you aware? Oh, here comes jealousy. I've had that before. Da-da-da. Time for jealousy. Da-da-da. Here comes insecurity. Oh my God. Has to go up and give a talk. Here comes the insecurity. Da-da-da. Here it comes. There it goes. Have you watched? Can you watch? Watch. Watch. Then pay attention to who's watching. Pay more attention to who's watching than what you're watching. Once you can do that, you'll stop judging yourself. I talked about this thing of not liking yourself. That's absurd. Who you are is not likable. You are, in yoga we call it Satchitananda. Satchitananda. Eternal conscious joy, ecstasy. That is the nature of your being. That is who is looking at this stuff. So eventually you stop judging what you're looking at and you start identifying with who's looking. Once you do that enough, it starts to wake up inside of you. What does? Spirit. I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. What does that mean? You just feel this ecstasy welling up from behind you. Joy, love, peace, constantly. At first, once in a while, then the more time you spend back in the self, the more it becomes your permanent experience. And even while you walk around during the day, that's what you're feeling, it's what you're experiencing. And you wouldn't trade it for anything. You are starting to deal with spirit. You're starting to feel your connection inside. It's what the great mystics felt. It's what the great ones experience. It is your path home. You just follow that flow of the energy, and it draws you back further and further within yourself until eventually you can just let go and it pulls you back with it. And this is your whole spiritual journey. That's what spirituality is. So you have to decide what you want to do. Do you want to go outside and play the game of trying to make everybody and everything be the way you need for them to be okay? Or do you finally want to wake up and take on the most exciting journey, the most rewarding journey that could ever exist? It's the journey to self-realization. The journey to knowing, who are you? Who are you? Who sees when you see? Who hears when you hear? Who sees the thoughts when you think? Who watches your dreams? Who is this indwelling being who is there? That being is the most beautiful being in the universe. Get to know it. Jagrative.